Hi, my name is Leah Susie, and I am from Nashville, Tennessee, and I worked for YouthWorks from the summer of 2003 through the fall of 2015, and in that time I served in a lot of different roles. So first I was, in 2003, I was the Kids Club staff in Fort Apache, Arizona, and then I came on board and moved to Minnesota for a year-long internship called YouthWorks. And after that year, the summer of 2004, I was the program staff in Philadelphia. Then I joined full-time YouthWorks, and I joined the recruiting department. I was a recruiter for 4 years, and during that time, I served in 2005 and 2006. I was the site director in Bayou Bachry, Alabama. And then in 2007, I was the area director for Chattanooga, Newport, Marvel, and Kahoma, Mississippi. So 4 sites in the southeast. And then the summer of 2008, I worked in the office doing recruiting. And then I came on board as the regional director for the southeast for 8 years after that. And that was from 2008 through 2015. So that is my history with YouthWorks. So what I'm currently doing now is after 12 years of YouthWorks, I didn't know what I was going to do. I grew up there. It was all I knew. It was my first job. And so I took a little bit of time off, and then I landed with a nonprofit here in Nashville that works with, called Monroe Harding, that works with kids and teenagers that are in foster care. So I started doing things with, on the development team with volunteer engagement and church relationships, donor relations, things like that. Then I stepped into recruiting our foster parents, so overseeing our recruitment team for that, which I had experience from with YouthWorks. And then currently I am the director of development, so I oversee all of our fundraising efforts, our special events, and donor relations, community partnerships, which are all things that I did in some capacity at YouthWorks. So I really cannot begin to talk about how working for YouthWorks prepared me for future endeavors. Really, I'm only 3 years out of working for YouthWorks. I grew up there. I started as a 19-year-old, and I left after I was married and had 2 kids. So literally, I grew up at YouthWorks. And so much of who I am, who I became, was shaped and formed by my friends and colleagues and leadership, the communities I served in, what I got to see and experience along the way. I really, as far as practical skills, there's so many. There really is. And it's kind of amazing for me, having left YouthWorks, and, that's all I knew for 12 years, how well prepared I was and how appreciative I was for all those soft skills. Things like, the conflict resolution stuff that I was talking about as a 21-year-old, how I deal with conflict. I work with 60-year-olds now that don't know how they deal with conflict. So those kinds of things that I learned and was a part of, and was a part of me growing up in my leadership and my marriage, me as a parent, all of those things. It really can't adequately put into words how much I benefited, how much I grew, and how much it shaped me for what I'm doing today and what I think I'll continue to do. As far as leadership, I continue just to be thankful for the leadership that I got to sit under, that I got to be a part of, seeing how they interacted with each other, how they led. Servant leadership was what I grew up in, and that's what I do. And so going to another organization that's still a nonprofit, social service, and seeing that that's not the culture was shocking at first to experience that. But I think those leadership skills that I developed, the ability to tell the story, to cast the vision, to get people on board, all of those are practical skills that I took away with. Not to mention, the biggest thing is the friendships and the relationships that I built with the communities and with the other staff that are still a huge part of my life today. So one of the things that I would say was meaningful for my development was just the ability that I had to learn how to work hard. I think that that's something that is maybe lost a little bit now. I think that being that I started as a kids club staff, there's 4 of us and we did everything. There wasn't, well, there was, and those people get fired. But there's, you don't have the option to not do stuff. Everybody was hands on deck, and you did every role. And so I think knowing that that's the work ethic that I learned from and that I do now, it's kind of foreign, in my current job. Whenever I see people who are like, well, that's not my job, and it's like, we're all a team. How do we collaborate together? How do we work together? And that, again, was just part of the culture that YouthWorks provided for us, that I didn't know I was getting it. I didn't know I was learning those skills, but walking away from it and seeing it now, I totally know that that's a huge part of how I operate today, how I lead my team today. And it's, ingrained in me. It's not something that I think will go away necessarily. Again, other things that were meaningful for my development, I think, was even just the relationship of working with adults. So being, I was 19 when I started, and leading adults and having conversations, and that put me in the position, when I was 19, 20, 21, 22, early adulthood, that a lot of young people don't get naturally. You're not interacting and engaging with adults in the way that I had the opportunity to, and the skills that come from that, from the adult leaders, from the community members, from the staff, all of those things were pretty critical, I think, in my development, in what I'm doing now, and the skills that I learned from YouthWorks.